the co-founder of the Restaurant Technology Network. I'm thrilled today to be sitting down with one of my friends in the industry, Marcus Wasdin, who has an interesting story. And the reason we're talking with Marcus today is because he's kind of flipped from the restaurant side to the supplier side in a very interesting way. So happy to speak with you today, Marcus. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Angela. Thank you so much for having me.
Good, good. Well, we know Marcus was at the most recently from being CIO at the Atlanta Hawks, and he was on our board of governors here at the RTN. So he was always a huge advocate for us. We were thrilled to have him on the board. And now he has moved over to a name that needs no introduction in the industry, which is PAR. So Marcus, tell us about that leap for you.
Yeah, look, I have probably a less traditional path to getting to where I am today than a lot of people. And Angela, thank you for having me today. It's such a treat for me to talk with you and really be able to engage more fully in an industry that I really had an affinity for. So, if you look at my career, I started off as a consultant, and then I went into the software space. And then I spent a lot of time in hospitality, 7 years as CIO at Church's Chicken, where I really got steeped in the operations of restaurants, spent a lot of time back of house helping figure out food costs and labor costs and things of that nature. And then got lured away to the Atlanta Hawks. So I had a little bit of a diversion out of this industry that I love so much. We were still tangentially, associated because we're in the hospitality business and we had point of sale and all that kind of fun stuff. And
tons of cool restaurants. And
we had some really cool restaurants and look, that was a fantastic thing. And one of the reasons I actually made that leap is because we were doing a $200 million renovation of the arena. And in the first 18 months I was there, I spent, $25 million on technology inside there. And that's just a kind of a thrill of a lifetime to be able to do that and put your fingerprint on a building in the city where I grew up. I was born and raised in Atlanta. And so that was really cool. And so, we did some great stuff there. 3 years, the following 3 years after the renovation, we were the number one guest experience arena in all of the NBA. We're the number one in-arena technology in all of the NBA. And it was a fantastic, fun time. And then kind of like these things happen, I got a call from a friend of mine who's in the restaurant space. And he said, hey, PAR has a fairly new management team, and they're looking for a general manager to run their back office solution that used to be called Restaurant Magic. So for the folks that are out there that remember that Restaurant Magic name, PAR acquired them at the end of 2019, and then COVID hit, right? And so that just kind of messed the world up a little bit. So they were looking for someone to come in and kind of take charge of that particular business unit because there's a lot of expectations and excitement around, what that business unit can do, especially in today's restaurant environment where restaurants are struggling with, labor, issues and getting people to show up and supply chain issues and cost of goods. And all of that is squarely in, the data central, which is what the product is called. It's in our wheelhouse, right? So I could not be more excited to re-engage in an industry that I gained an affinity for when I spent that time at Church's. So
yeah.
Yeah. So Angela, you've heard me say this before, but I think of my career in chapters. Like that first chapter was consulting things done. That second chapter was selling things done.
Yes.
The third chapter with the Hawks and Church's was getting things done. And so now how I view this chapter is I'm getting things done, but not for just one brand, right? Like when I was at Church's, I was getting it done for Church's. When I was at the Hawks, I was getting it done for the Hawks. Now I'm trying to get things done for all the great PAR Data Central customers that are current and the future ones. So I'm trying to expand that scope of getting things done.
Yeah, and that's exciting. I mean, in that same vein, when you talk about multi-brand support, a lot of people in the industry, and I think this is the main reason I kind of wanted to pick your brain today. They look at PAR as a legacy, obviously a huge legacy player in the space, and we're seeing PAR make these acquisitions. And the number one question I think that's top of mind with a lot of folks is, well, I kind of looked at that Restaurant Magic solution way back when, and I really liked it. But hey, do I have to be a PAR customer to grab a hold of that functionality today? Or just tell us about the integration and PAR's relationship to the brands that it acquires. Are these brands remaining sort of point of sale agnostic in the industry?
Yeah, no, such a great question. And so what I would say, I would reframe kind of the legacy brand, which I know that's how a lot of people view PAR, but I would reframe that into, we have a rich tradition in restaurants and restaurant technology as PAR. And so as Savneet likes to say, the management team that's in place now, like nobody was alive when PAR was founded.
Yeah, this is crazy.
So it's pretty crazy, right? And so what's really kind of neat is even back then, right, that PAR created the very first point of sale terminal, and it was for one of the PAR founders' mothers who owned a McDonald's franchise, and she needed a way to automate the sales process. And so, there is that company, and we have this rich legacy of being part of the restaurant technology scene. But since Savneet has joined the company a little over 3 years ago, he's assembled this management team that really has more of a growth company mindset. And so the vision, and part of the reason, again, that I joined PAR was Savneet's vision and the talent that he's been able to attract to help him execute against this vision. I mean, when I went through the interview process, I talked with some of the smartest people that I've met in the industry, and it really excited me about, kind of the level and capability that they have to execute in addition to the vision that they want to execute against. And so, this whole concept around acquisitions, like you were mentioning, we have this vision of creating what we're calling the unified commerce platform, which is software across the restaurant and having a solution for restaurants to blanket them for any and all things that they may need to do to operate successfully. Now, threading the needle on that doesn't mean that you have to engage in all of the PAR, UCP is unified commerce platform for short.
Yeah.
We also are still best of breed modules inside of that. So if you think about the Restaurant Magic name equity that people remember got acquired by PAR, COVID hits and things happen, and it just kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. Part of my mandate is to bring back the fact that Data Central as a back office is a best of breed standalone back office that we still do active development on for integrations for products that may be competitive to other parts of PAR. And that's true for the Brink POS aspect too. So Brink PAR or PAR Brink, they have integrations with back office solutions that are competitive to Data Central. So, from an open standards perspective, the message that we want to deliver is each one of our products can stand alone on its own and provide significant value to restaurants. But if you start aggregating those products together, it starts to level that up where, the power that you get across all of those things is even more substantial and more valuable than if you just have one of the pieces. But, and a lot of companies acquire companies like you were mentioning before to scale up, right? Like, so to get bigger, and that's not what we're doing. We're acquiring companies that help us expand our scope. So we have that unified commerce platform vision. We have areas of that vision already covered, but there's holes in that vision as well. And so what you'll notice is we're making these strategic acquisitions in order to round out that overall solution set. So that's a little bit different than some of the other people in the industry.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I want everybody just to be clear and to sort of fortify what Marcus just said. It's totally open platform, right? I mean, you can plug and play with other systems. Correct. And that's that being the Data Central and or the Punch solution, for example. And those solutions may have changed, like Data Central is now was Restaurant Magic. Correct. Was Data Central like the product name for restaurant? It
was. So Restaurant Magic was the company name and Data Central was the product. And so the Restaurant Magic name just kind of went away, and but no one knew it as that, right? Like everybody just knew it as Restaurant Magic. And so that was part of the confusion in the marketplace, is that they adopted the product name, and it's a pretty generic product name. It doesn't necessarily have connotations to the restaurant space, although I'll dive into that a little bit later. But you're exactly right. I mean, from an open API and open framework perspective, again, we provide significant value and integrate with the big players out there. But the pitch that we would have is that if you start to aggregate up our solutions, that you even realize more value. So that open API, we're actually doubling down on that. We're putting our money where our mouth is. So you'll be seeing from Brink, where we're doing a lot of work on our actual API framework and getting that ready. And then Data Central will be pretty shortly behind that, where we're actually publicizing the API and putting it out there and making sure that people are aware that we integrate with the best of breed out there. So, which
is one of the key principles of the RTN's open API framework, is to kind of publish your information and make it accessible and all of that
support around it, right? Like we don't want to just put it out there and leave people hanging. We want to make sure that it has the appropriate documentation, it has the appropriate support mechanisms in case people run into challenges. So really have a lot of focus on that.
Yeah, it's really important. And it's interesting to have the customers that both have the full unified commerce platform, or just the ones that have pieces of your solution. Right. And it's nice that they can kind of up level when they're ready, or use a different solution. So that's kind of, I think, what the whole open API and open architecture hope is for the restaurants, right? That we can use whatever we feel is the best solution. We're not we're not tied to like one just because it's easy to integrate, So that's very cool. So tell us, I guess this is my last question. Tell us your vision for the future of that business. I mean, that business unit and also just your role there.
Such an excellent question, right? And so what I'll caveat this with is my little disclaimer is this is 7 weeks in, right? So I started.
Yeah, you're thinking from the fire hose, for sure.
And so, and I'm super excited, right? Like I am in it, right? Like I am every day, all day, kind of driving this business forward, learning what's going on. What are we doing well? What can we do better? All those different types of things. So I reserve the right, if we get a chance to chat again in, 6 months or a year or however long that is to potentially alter this. But, one of the things that there's actually one underlying concept and I mentioned, one of the taglines that Savneet mentions is changing from bodies to bits, right? And that resonates with me. That was part of what we talked about. And what that means is you've got restaurants that and historically have been able to just throw more and more people at challenges that they may have. If you had a QA issue in your restaurant, you could hire someone to inspect the food before it went out. But restaurants are struggling just to get people to show up. And being buried in the restaurant space, my wife happens to work for a very, very large franchise organization. They have a hard time staffing restaurants like across the industry. So I live it every day, even at home. And
especially today. Oh my goodness. Especially today.
It's crazy. And so, one of the things that, Savneet says, and it's the little tagline is, restaurants used to be able to throw bodies at the problem. They can no longer throw bodies at the problem. So we need to turn to technology solutions, and that's the bits, right? So going from bodies to bits. Mm-hmm. And so having said that, right, like there's kind of two main areas of focus I have at the moment around where I think Data Central can go very specifically. And that is, the first would be, amplifying and leveraging the talent that you have, right? So how do we do things in order to make the people that actually are showing up at the restaurants, that are putting their heart and soul into driving these restaurants, how do we make them as efficient as we possibly can? And meaning, not having them have to sit down and figure out, and hunt for data to run their restaurant. So if they got to sit down and click, 30 times to figure out if they're, on labor plan because of their sales for the day, or if they have to click through these things, I don't want them to sit down behind a computer during the day. I want the system to then be prompting them for what's happening. Hey, alert pops up and says, you may want to check your labor because sales aren't where we forecasted they're going to be, or sales are way ahead of where they were supposed to be. So you may want to look at adding labor to maintain your levels of guest satisfaction. So I want that to amplify the people that are coming and make them busy so that we can return time to them so they can be guest facing as opposed to huddled up over a computer in the backside. So automating and becoming proactive as opposed to just having the data and having them have to find it. That's kind of vision number one. Vision number two would be, and we see it more as consumers on the front of the house, which is, we call it vendor spaghetti. If you've got a restaurant that's got 2 or 3 different delivery services to deal with, we've all seen the stack of tablets there at front of house and nothing integrates and it's all manual. And it's great from a speed perspective, and it was kind of a lifesaver for restaurants in the teeth of COVID, but it becomes more and more of a challenge as you move forward, and who owns the customer and who owns the customer data and all that kind of fun stuff. Well, that same issue kind of exists in the back of house. There's a ton of technology in the back of house that doesn't talk to each other either. So whether you're talking about the existing like IoT sensors and whatever you may be doing there, you're talking about food quality and health and safety measures and temp probes and that kind of fun stuff. You talk about automation, right? So I mean, we're not that far off from robots and all that kind of fun stuff. I mean, I see that coming on, at Mertech Executive Summit, we're talking about drone delivery and all that kind of craziness. So, that stuff is coming. And so there's no platform today that aggregates all of that stuff together so that you can then analyze it in one system and make better business decisions because you're not looking for that data across the way. So the second kind of vision for Data Central is to become that centralized data highway or exchange, if you will, that everything else kind of snaps into. So that kind of speaks back to your open API framework. That's why it dovetails in well with how do we establish this robust API so we can consume that data. And we already have very robust reporting and analytic capabilities. How do we then build the reports that marry in, temp probe sensors and drive-through timers and all these other things. If you've got prep thaw production, one day we could have a robot that's dropping fried chicken based on the trigger from the back office. So like automating things as much as we can, and then secondarily figuring out a way to integrate and become that central point of contact for all the data that's back of house. So
yeah, I mean
that's kind of my two things today.
Yes, but that's
may change, but
music to so many people's ears is just getting everything in one place and having one central view of the truth across your operation, especially as when all these delivery methods are changing up, like you said, whether it's a robotic arm in the hopper as in the fryer area, or whether it's drone delivery like El Pollo Loco is doing so successfully.
Correct.
So much going on right now that it's almost like you need a central nucleus brain to kind of keep track of everything. Like you said, the highway. Would you call it the highway?
Yeah, the highway. Let's get it. Let's snap. Let's get the cars on the highway. And so I'm excited about that. And look, it's and I'm excited about Data Central's role in that, and the fact that we're not just Data Central or Restaurant Magic anymore. We have this bigger backing of PAR and smart people like Sandeep that are making the right investments to help drive us forward. And he really does have this vision, and I really enjoyed it. And what I'm really excited about too is actually being able to engage with people like you and the other people at Hospitality Technology too, because now I'm back squarely in the hospitality technology space where I took that little diversion with the Hawks. And you guys have been so kind to me over the years, from being on the magazine to speaking at a bunch of stuff to being on the board of governors. I mean, it's just been such a pleasure and a privilege for me that I'm excited that I get to re-engage with you guys on a more frequent basis.
We're thrilled, and I know that PAR is thrilled to have you in this role, and we're excited too that you're part of RTN. You guys are a platinum member supporter and always have been. So we so appreciate the support of PAR in the industry. Like, big players like that need to support industry initiatives that advance restaurants forward in a collaborative way, which we're so happy that you come to the table with us and with all of our other vendors and our restaurants and play nice with the industry and that kind of stuff. So we appreciate it. We support it. And I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you today. I hope it cleared up some things for some folks out there that were a little confused about what happened to the Restaurant Magic brand, what's going on with PAR, what are they doing? That you gave us a really nice bite-sized clarity around that, especially when you said bodies versus bits. That resonates with me too. I think that's really important to try to automate as much as you can so that people, so that the labor can be maximized to what it.
Yeah, I love it. And the other aspect that we do too, just one more quick thing is we're trying to, it's a weird counterintuitive thing, but we kind of want to disappear in the restaurant experience, meaning another one of our taglines is, food, people, and nothing in between.
Yeah, I like that.
Like, people shouldn't be aware that PAR exists if you're a consumer, right? Like, we want to be that transparent and really enable folks. So, just excited about it. And couldn't be more fired up. And you guys will see me cruising around like all the events now. So I'll be back.
We'll see you at Murtec.
I'll be there.
We'll be there. We'll see you in Vegas. Well, thank you, Marcus, so much for your time. We appreciate you sitting down and having this chat with us just 7 weeks in?
Yes, ma'am.
So I know that you're a busy guy these days, so we wish you much success in your new role, and we look forward to working with you as we move it along.
Thank you. Thanks, Angela.
Marcus.